Hello, everybody. John Barranco here.
Brad Cohen.
Good afternoon or good evening, Brad Cohen.
Coleman Prewit.
Good evening, Coleman Prewit here.
William Rotella.
Hello, William Rotella. Thank you.
Jacqueline Scott.
Good evening. This is Jackie.
Jay Scheckman.
Hello.
Michael Weymouth.
Hello.
Vice Chair Mary Ferdig.
Good evening.
And again, I'm Catherine Moss, I'm the chair. I would also like to ask you to join me in standing and saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
And to the republic for which it stands,
One nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible,
visible,
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval of the July 15th, 2020 minutes?
So moved.
Motion by Mary. Is there a second?
Second.
Who was the second by?
Bill Rotella.
Thank you, Bill. Any discussion on the minutes? Does anyone have any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor, aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on, I'd like to introduce the staff that is here with us tonight. I'd like to start with the City Attorney's Office. Do we have Mr. Dwayne Spence?
Good afternoon. Dwayne Spence here.
Do we have Shari Wallen?
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Shari. Ella, I'd like to introduce Ella Parker, who is, I'm not going to get the title right, Ella. Would you please introduce yourself and your staff, please?
Unmute yourself.
Thank you,
Unmute.
Jackie. I got it. Yep. Thank you. Good evening. Ella Parker, Design and Planning Manager. With us from staff tonight, we have Jim Hetzel. We've got Carl-Ann Grant, Nick Calargeros. We also have Ben Restrepo from Transportation and Mobility, Igor Basilia from Public Works. We've got some folks from Public Works as well that will be joining us on some of the items in reference to the fire station. And if you have any questions, just let us know throughout the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ella. I would note that we have 100% attendance of board members and obviously a quorum. So on to the next item. We have case number 1, R18025. Stephanie, are you with us? Do we have the applicant for case number 1, Ms. Toothaker?
I believe that's been withdrawn.
There she is.
Ms. Toothaker, case number 1.
Hi, good evening, Chair. Good evening, Mayor. I'm sorry, members of the Planning and Zoning Board. We have submitted a request to withdraw this application from your consideration. The City Commission approved last evening unanimously the alternate site plan, so this site plan is no longer necessary.
Okay, so are you asking us to withdraw or you are withdrawing?
We're withdrawing it, but I wanted to appear and let you know why we were doing that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 2, PLN-site-2004-0004. I'd like to start with disclosures, and I would like to start with Brad Cohen, disclosures.
Madam Chair, did you want, this is Shari, did you want me to do the swearing in first of everyone?
Yes, I'm so sorry, Shari.
It's okay.
At this time, Shari is going to swear in anyone wishing to speak on an item tonight. If you plan on speaking on any item tonight, please raise your hand when Ms. Wallen asks you to.
Please raise your right hand if you're going to speak tonight on any of the items. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please answer. Thank you.
Okay, ready to go forward? All right, item number 2. PLN site 2004-0004. Disclosures I was starting with Brad Cohen.
Yes.
Disclosures. Case 2.
Sorry, none.
Coleman Prewit.
I spoke to counsel for the applicant.
Bill Rotella.
I spoke with the applicant. I spoke with counsel for the applicant and visited the site.
Jackie Scott.
I spoke to Charlie Ladd, I spoke to Robert Lochrie, and I visited the site.
Jay Schechtman.
I spoke with applicant's counsel and visited the site.
Michael Weymouth.
I did a site visit, spoke to the applicant's counsel, and spoke to Charlie Ladd.
John Barranco.
I spoke with Mr. Lochrie.
Mary Ferdig.
Hold on, sorry. I spoke with Mr. Lochrie and visited the site.
And I spoke with Mr. Lochrie. Mr. Lochrie, it's all yours. Robert.
Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm up. Thank you very much. Good evening to the board, chair, vice chair, members of the board. My name is Robert Lochrie. I'm joined here with the principal of the project, Charlie Ladd, who is wearing a mask, I assure you. As your staff report indicates, the request before you tonight is for the approval of a restaurant with attributed parking reduction for the property located at 1002 East Las Olas Boulevard on the south side of Las Olas. If I can now share my screen, I'll go ahead and go through my presentation.
You should be able to share your screen.
All right, can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So as I said, the property is located at 1002 East Las Olas Boulevard. I will now go to a closer view of it, if I can. Oh, now it's frozen. Well, I'll do it this way. As I said, the property is located on the south side of Las Olas Boulevard. It is to the west of the Himmershey Canal, which is over here, of course, and 9th Avenue, which is located right here. It's just to the east of where Hoffman's Chocolate used to be located. One of the things, of course, about this site, which is similar to this entire corridor of Las Olas, is you have ample parking both to the south of the site as well as on the north side of Las Olas on the north side of the site. This next view is a closer view of the specific parcel. It is known in part by, on the east end of the property, there is a breezeway that connects the city's parking facility. This is the nautical lot just to the southeast of the site to Las Olas Boulevard on the north. So this is the parcel that we're talking about specifically. This is a view of the site as it exists today. It's the former home of Tommy Bahama before it moved down the street a little bit further to the west. And right next to us where Hoffman's Chocolate used to be. The breezeway that I talked about is just a little over on the side there. Not sure if you can see my hand, but over to the left of where that American flag is. This is the proposal for the new restaurant. It is a 2-story restaurant with ground floor restaurant, all interior to the building with seating. There is a second floor which includes a terrace with outdoor seating above. The second floor of the building is stepped back significantly to provide for that terrace and to keep a uniform cornice height along Las Olas. On the left side of the graphic, you see the breezeway that I described. The windows that look into the restaurant continue not only along the storefront, but also along that breezeway. This breezeway is one of many along Las Olas that provides close access to the street and to the parking facilities behind. So Mr. Ladd thought that was a very important component to keep with the restaurant. This is a view of the restaurant from a little bit higher up, looking down at the terrace and also looking at a proposed project that our neighbor will be building just to the west of this site. So what you see on the left is the new restaurant, which is the Etta restaurant with the outdoor terrace above. This next view is on the south side of the restaurant where we've included 3 parking spaces. This is also where the loading and dumpster location is. It's right off the alley that serves all the uses along Las Olas. And again, you see the walkway which connects from the parking area to Las Olas in the front. The restaurant that's being proposed is an Etta restaurant. It's a franchise out of Chicago. There's actually 2 locations in Chicago. This is one of those locations, so it begins to give you an idea of what they contemplate to include within the restaurant itself. ETA prides itself on a wood-fired hearth menu involving local ingredients to the greatest extent possible. It's a very casual, yet it is a sit-down restaurant. A little bit more about ETA. This will be their first location in South Florida. Similar to any project along Las Olas, one of the things that accompanies the site plan that you are reviewing tonight is a request for a parking reduction. And obviously there is not space on this specific piece for parking, and so we take advantage of a vast amount of public parking that's available in the general vicinity. The way your city code works, when we look at parking reductions, we look at the parking spaces that are within 700 feet of the specific restaurant. So in this case, our traffic consultant, Suzanne Danielson, did a study. First of all, determined how many public spaces are available within 700 feet, and the total was 774 spaces. We then did an actual inventory of spaces that are available over the summer, but due to COVID, we decided to use a more conservative approach. So we actually went back to historic data that the city has assembled on these parking areas through parking studies and analysis that were done in 2017 and used that as our base. Suzanne did take that base and apply to it growth factors, both and seasonal factors to increase the demand to provide a realistic expectation of what we would expect out there. And as your staff report indicates, and as the report from Suzanne Danielson indicates, of the 774 spaces that are available at peak hours during the weekday, there are 288 available. And during the weekend, which is a Saturday night at 8 p.m., which is truly the peak period of time during the week, there are 243 parking spaces available, far in excess of the 73 parking spaces that this site requires once one considers the grandfathering that's involved with the existing building and existing use. Now, the reality is we only looked at parking spaces within 700 feet, which doesn't tell the whole story. When you really look at kind of the Las Olas corridor, and specifically relates to this neighborhood, what you see from Federal Highway or the tunnel to the west, to the Tarpon River to the east, is there's a vast amount of parking available. And this is all public parking and does not consider any on-street parking. So when you look at the roughly 1,300 spaces that are available and available to the public, that doesn't even take into consideration parking along Las Olas or parking along the side streets. We agree with the staff's recommendations. We note that they have done a thorough analysis of Suzanne's analysis and that ample parking is available to serve this use. We'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Is it the board's desire that the staff report by the city be included as part of the record?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mary, second by Jackie. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 I heard no nays, so the motion carries unanimously. I do not have any hands up, so I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there any member of the public wishing to speak on this item?
Chair, we did not have anyone sign up to speak on this item.
Okay. Hearing no one wishing to speak on this item, I close the public hearing, bring it back to the board. I see Mary's waving her hand. Mary?
Yes, a move to approve, please.
Second.
Motion by Mary, second by Brad. Did I get
May
that?
I just, this is Shari, may I just ask, is it based on the findings of fact in the staff report?
Oh, yes, yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, and may I read the title of the resolution?
The resolution. Thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot to print the resolution off, Shari, so thank you.
Okay. A resolution of the Planning and Zoning Board of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, approving a site plan level 3 development permit for the development known as ETA Las Olas, located at 1002 East Las Olas Boulevard, Lauderdale, Florida, in the B1 zoning district for the development of a restaurant and approving a parking reduction in accordance with section 4720.3 of the Unified Land Development Regulations. And I just want to clarify that it includes the staff conditions on page 4 of the staff report.
This is Robert Lochrie. I also want to mention that the applicant accepts all the conditions of the staff report.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second and no discussion by the board. So I'm going to call the roll if that is appropriate, Bridget. Okay. Coleman.
Yes.
William Rotella.
Yes.
Jackie.
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Brad.
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. The resolution is passed unanimously. Item
Thank
number,
you. And Charlie Ladd says thank you as well. He's shouting in my ear.
Thank
so.
you very much.
Thank you.
Robert.
Bruce Mass.
Item number 3, PLN site 19110004. This is the Publix project. I'd like to start by getting disclosures from the board, and I will start with Bill Rotella. Any disclosures?
I visited the site and I spoke with Heidi.
Jackie?
I visited the site and I spoke with Heidi.
Jay?
Site visit.
Michael?
Site visit, spoke with the applicant's counsel.
John?
A site visit, and I spoke with the applicant's attorney.
Brad?
Site visit and I spoke with the applicant's attorney.
Coleman?
I spoke with the counsel for the applicant, and I believe there were some letters that were provided by Ella and the staff, from the staff.
Mary?
Yes, I spoke with Heidi. I visited the site and I received a number of letters. And I spoke with Bill Brown.
I also spoke with Heidi, and I also received letters from Ella regarding the application. So Heidi, it is all yours.
Thank you, everybody. I'm sorry, Jay, I didn't get to talk to you, but I did try, so I just didn't want you to feel left out. Good evening. My name is Heidi Davis. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Gunster here tonight on behalf of Publix Supermarkets, Inc. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And hopefully it'll work. Here we go. Good. Publix is proposing to construct a new grocery store on Fort Lauderdale Beach at property located at 2985 North Ocean Boulevard, 1 block south of Oakland Park Boulevard, at the southwest corner of Northeast 30th Street and North Ocean Boulevard, which is A1A. I have an entire development team here with me tonight to answer any questions that you may have, so I wanted to just quickly introduce them. Randy Holohan and Ryan Holohan of Pasadena Capital, which are the developers. Brian Fisher and his very talented architects at Fisher and Associates. Nelson Ortiz and his amazing team of engineers and landscape architects at Grafe. And Carl Peterson of KBP Consulting, Inc., professional traffic engineer. The property is 1.4 acres, or approximately 61,592 square feet, and it stretches from A1A to Northeast 33rd Avenue and is surrounded by 3 rights of way. Publix has been trying to locate a property on Fort Lauderdale Beach and the South Barrier Island for almost 10 years now. Through a creative assemblage that has 3 owners, 5 parcels, 2 plats, 2 different zoning districts, and 2 different land uses, they found this great property. The property is currently vacant commercial strip development where Stat Medical and the never opened Baba Ganoush was located. If you can remember back, the property was also the original home of Shuck and Dive and Black Pearl. The remaining portions of the property are surface parking lots. The proposed project will revitalize this area by bringing a much needed and desired public supermarket to the property. We have met with hundreds of neighbors and all the surrounding civic and homeowners associations, and there is overwhelming support for a new Publix at this location. The proposed Publix is being designed with the neighborhood in mind. It is low profile, only 24 feet in height, and blends in with the surrounding natural elements of the barrier island. The design creates active uses and pedestrian-friendly streetscapes with large sidewalks and shade trees to encourage pedestrian activity along A1A, Northeast 30th Street, and Northeast 33rd Avenue. It will be a store where people walk to pick up their fresh vegetables and fruits and daily groceries, similar to how Europeans shop, or to have a full shopping experience. The size of the proposed store is one of Publix's urban footprints, which will be similar in size to the store across the street from Galleria Mall on Sunrise Boulevard. The property is within walking distance of thousands of neighbors, which makes this location so good for the use. For our applications, we are required to send out notices to the property owners within 300 feet of the property. We sent over 1,000 property notices to the properties within 300 feet of this property, which is shown on the top aerial. Studies show that most people will walk up to a quarter of a mile for their shopping needs. The bottom aerial depicts this quarter of a mile, which is approximately 4.5 blocks. If there are 1,000 property owners within 300 feet of the property, just think how many people are within 1,320 feet of the property. A lot of these people head over the Oakland Park Bridge now to do their grocery shopping. The new Publix will cut down on those traffic trips. And of course, Publix always has Instacart delivery service. There are 3 applications before you this evening. The first is the site plan for the grocery store. The second is the rezoning to change the rear 2 lots from RMH 60 to community business, and a request for 0.52 acre of commercial flex to be allocated to the property. A 4th application for minor setback variances was unanimously approved 7-0 at the Board of Adjustment last week. The first application is for the site plan. The proposed plan includes a 1-story, 29,495 square foot public supermarket. 118 parking spaces are provided, which meets code requirements. There is parking on the first floor of the garage, but the majority of the parking is located on the roof of the structure. The height of the structure is 24 feet, which up to 120 feet is permitted within the CB zoning district, and 120 to 240 feet is permitted within the RMH 60 zoning district. All loading and recycling and service operations are conducted entirely within the footprint of the structure. The project's design is characterized as contemporary style architecture, exemplified by the simple and clean lines of the structure, natural materials and elements, including coral stone and glass. The street level facades enhance the pedestrian environment by incorporating architectural features into its design, which add special interest and compatibility with nearby properties and site elements. Modern curved and geometric features are also incorporated along the facades to resemble ocean waves. The facades of the building are well articulated, providing visual variety and interest without being overwhelming. The architectural features continue around the entire building with varying levels of architectural dimensions and features which break up the mass of the facades. The project is enhanced by landscaping, including shade and flowering trees and palms that surround the entire property, including a heavily planted buffer yard on the south side between properties. Although the landscape code only requires the buffer yard to contain 14 trees at a planting height of 10 feet, Publix is proposing to include 29 trees within the buffer yard at a planting height of 18 feet. Shrubs, bushes, and ground cover will also be planted within the buffer yard to add additional layers of landscaping to enhance and screen the building. Rooftop trellises add a green element to protect guests from weather and to screen the rooftop parking. Here's just another rendering that looks northwest, showing the A1A corridor, and here's a close-up perspective of the project along A1A. As part of our applications, we are requesting a rezoning and for commercial flex allocation. The property has split land use and zoning designations, with the northern 3 parcels being zoned community business with an underlying land use of commercial, and the south 2 parcels having a zoning district of RMH 60, which is the city's most intense density, with an underlying land use of high residential 50. We are requesting that the southern parcels be rezoned to CB, or community business, to be consistent with the northern parcels. As stated in the staff report, the rezoning request satisfies the criteria for section 4724.1 28.4D, in that the CB zoning district is consistent with the commercial use proposed and the city's comprehensive plan. The commercial flex allocation criteria pursuant to 47-28.1G is also satisfied, as the request is to rezone to community business. City has confirmed that no more than 5% of the total area has been rezoned to CB. The property is only 1.41 acres, and the applications are being reviewed as a site plan level 4. The use is consistent and suitable with the surrounding area, and there will be no adverse impacts to the character of the area. As stated above, we have overwhelming community support for the project. We started our community outreach over a year ago, meeting with our neighbors. We also not only presented to the Civic Association, which this property is a part, which is the Central Beach Alliance, we also met with the Galt Ocean Civic Association to our north, the Lauderdale Beach Homeowners Association to our east, and the Dolphin Isles Homeowners Association to our south. And as you have in your packet, we have letters in support. On the screen is Publix's water and wastewater capacity letter from the city. Publix does not use a lot of water or use wastewater, and its impact to the system, as the letter states, will be negligible. Additionally, Publix conducted a full traffic study which analyzed the various intersections around the property, including the intersection at Northeast 30th Street and A1A. The traffic study was reviewed and approved by both the city's traffic reviewer at TAM, as well as the city's outside traffic engineer at Kimley Horn. While the study does include some pedestrian consideration based on the number of residents and visitors within such close proximity to the store, we anticipate many more residents and visitors will walk or bicycle to the store. And in conclusion, we just wanted to say the proposed project will revitalize this area and finally bring a Publix to Fort Lauderdale Beach. Thank you for allowing us to present to you this evening. We agree with all of staff's conditions and recommendations. And if anybody has any questions, we have our entire team here who would be happy to answer any questions. We also would like to reserve time for rebuttal if needed. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Heidi. Is it the desire of the board to include the staff report with the official record of the evening? All in favor, aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, with unanimous support, we'll include the staff report as part of the record. I have a question for Ella. Are we making one vote on a rezoning which includes a commercial flex allocation? In other words, we do not have a second vote required?
That's correct, Chair. So this is actually a site plan level 4. The rezoning is tied to flex allocation. So it's a recommendation to the commission.
Okay, thank you. I am looking at my screen and I do not see any hands raised. So I'm going to open the public hearing. Do we have any members of the public wishing to speak on item number 3, PLN SITE 19110004? Any members of the public?
Chair, we have 4 members of the public who signed up to speak on this item. The first one is William Brown. He's listed on the list, and he has 5 minutes to speak as the representative of the Central Beach Alliance.
Are you timing him or should I?
I can time him.
Okay, great. Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown? Hello, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Brown, please unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Chairwoman Moss and members of the Planning and Zoning Board, William Brown, President of the Central Beach Alliance. I come before you here this evening in support on behalf of the membership of the Central Beach Alliance on this proposed development at this site of Publix. As the counsel for the developer stated, a lot of time, energy, and effort's been put into this project over the past year to get a lot of public input. On a personal note, this is the way a planning project, proposed project should be done for any community, and Ms. Davis and the development team should be acknowledged and congratulated for listening to the neighbors' concerns, not only on the entire Berry Island, but the immediate neighbors, condo associations, and the additional homeowners association within our association of the Barrier Island. With that, I'm pleased to announce that it received overwhelming support on a vote taken on July 9th to the Zoom virtual meeting of 135 members in favor of the proposed project with 7 against. And I would ask that this board supports this proposed development so that it can move on to the full commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Tricia, who's next?
Our next speaker that signed up is Veronica Gaskins, but she's not appearing on the attendee list.
Okay.
And doesn't appear to have called in. So we'll move on to the next speaker that signed up is Steve Gannon.
Mr. Gannon? Steve Gannon?
I also do not see him.
Give him
listed.
1 second.
There he is.
Oh, I think he's popping up. Mr. Gannon?
Steve, go ahead and unmute.
Go ahead. Mr. Gannon, you're muted.
I know. Thank you for showing it. I finally found the unmute button. Hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Appreciate it. I won't take long. Bill Brown said it for all of us. It's been a great project. There's overwhelming support amongst our neighborhood. By the way, I'm Lauderdale Beach, neighborhood across A1A to the east. And we have about 125 single family homes and 80 condos as well, condo units. The only concerns we have heard was the increased traffic, and we don't expect a lot in our neighborhood. We expect that our concern is a little bit about we don't have a left turn signal ingress into the neighborhood southbound on A1A, eastbound to 30th Avenue, 30th Street. So hopefully our commissioner, I understand, Heidi, may be working with you and then trying to apply to the state to see about getting a left turn signal and to help us in and out in case there's more traffic. But that's our only concern there, and we are in support.
Thank you. Tricia, do we have one more?
Can I ask him a question, Catherine?
Sure, Jackie.
So you have how many people in your neighborhood?
125 single family homes, 80 condos at the C Tower, another 14 condos that are directly across A1A in other words. And we have, this is the, I forget, they are on the northeast corner of 30th and A1A.
So you want this, you want to have a traffic light there for, do you think that meets the current FDOT warrants?
Don't know. And then we're concerned, and it may not, and I understand that they hold those. But our still concern is if there is a lot of northbound A1A traffic and leftbound into that, we don't get enough time to turn left without a turn arrow, more or less, the way the light timing is. So,
okay.
That's it.
Thank you.
It's not going to stop us, that's for sure. We're in support of it.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Tricia, last person?
The last person that signed up is Ron Mastriana. However, I do not see him on the attendee list or as a call with his call number. So,
any other members of the public wishing to speak on item number 3? I see Mr. Rotella's hand is up, but we're just going to see if I can close the public hearing right now. I see no other hands up from the public, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Bill?
I just had a question. Was Heidi going to respond to Steve's question about the left turn signal?
Sure. Heidi, did you want to do that now?
Sure, if you would like. Thank you. We were just kind of notified about this issue today, and we are looking into it. So we're going to have to do a little bit more research on it. So I think what the neighborhood wants, from what I was told today, was a left turn lanes southbound into their neighborhood. So I think that it's an existing condition right now that is a problem, because when there's traffic going northbound on A1A, there's no left turn signal to get into their neighborhood. Publix doesn't have anything to do with this left turn condition and the existing condition, but we're going to look at it. We're going to research it. And if we can help, we're going to try.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Bill?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. I have no, okay, Mary?
Oh, can I go ahead and make a motion to approve with staff conditions?
Yep, I don't have any other hands up. All right, motion by Mary. Is there a second?
And can Shari read the resolution?
Hi, Dwayne Spence here. On this item, as Ella has indicated, is a recommendation to the City Commission, so it can be done by motion. So it's a motion to recommend approval.
Okay. And that's what I was doing, recommending approval with staff conditions.
So
And
we
I'll
had a
second.
motion by Mary and a second by Jackie. All right. Any discussion on the motion? I see no hands, so I'm going to call the roll. Bill,
Yes.
Jackie,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Mary,
Yes.
and I vote yes. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Item number 4, PLN SITE 2002-0002, temporary fire station. Disclosures, starting with Jackie, please.
None.
Jay,
None.
Michael,
None.
John,
None.
Brad,
None.
Coleman,
None.
Mary,
Visited the site?
and I have none. Carl Ann? Do we have Carl Ann?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, the floor is yours.
Actually, Alex Sheffer should be presenting on item 4.
Okay. Do we have Alex? Alex?
Hi there. Just got unmuted. Good evening. This is Alex Sheffworth, Craven Thompson. I'm going to try to share my screen now. Everything but the share button. Let me see here. Share screen. There we go. Everybody see the presentation now? Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Hi. So yes, I'm Alex Sheffer with Craven Thompson. With me is Irina and Danica with the City Public Works staff, and I believe the chief is on as well. This project is for a temporary fire station and surface parking lot located at 735 North Fort Lauderdale Beach Boulevard. And I will get over to it there. There we go. So we have met with the CBA and received a letter of support, and also had a public purpose meeting on August 6th. We've reached out to the Bonnet House, which is our neighbors to the north, and also got a letter of support. The project is located at A1A and Vistamar and Breakers on the west. So it's the vacant site that used to be the Natchez Hotel. There's 92 total parking spaces with 11 secured, dedicated for fire department staff, including 4 ADA spaces. The site is 5 parcels total, and it's located within the ABA A1A beachfront area district along Fort Lauderdale Beach. The approval we're seeking tonight is for an amendment to the land use classification for the property to temporarily allow the fire station to operate on the property. The reason for the land use reclassification is for the construction of the existing fire station. That's actually going to be reconstructed on Sunrise Boulevard. So in order for that reconstruction to happen, it's going to happen on the property itself. We have to reconstruct a temporary facility for that station so it can operate. So that's the real purpose of this temporary station. The construction is slated to begin the summer of 2021 and hopefully will end at the end of 2021. The new fire station is currently in initial design and construction, or the construction is to begin in the late summer of 2023. We have agreed with all the recommendations by the city DRC staff. We have completed an initial logical study on the site that was requested during the HPP presentation. And one of the requirements was additional testing that we will provide prior to building permit approval. Like I said before, we have had a favorable vote from the Historic Preservation Board and the CBA, and we're requesting favorable recommendation from PZB for presentation to the City Commission.
Okay, thank you. Does that complete your presentation?
Got a couple more slides really quick. I'm going to try to go through. So there's these are the existing site conditions. It's just a vacant site right now. There's Breakers Ave on the left into the Bonnet House property, and then the view across Breakers to the east. Here's a picture of the proposed site plan. Egress through the center of the site. The staging of the what happened there? Sorry. We have new sidewalk going along the perimeter of the site, along with tree installation, and new stormwater infrastructure along Breakers. And there's an existing traffic preemption device to allow left turns at A1A. And then a couple more blow-ups of the site plan. Here's the elevations. And then the landscape plan. And then the last thing I want to talk about is one thing that came out of the meeting, of the public purpose meeting, was the conflicts that we have with some existing parking along Vistamar. So as part of this project under separate permit, we're going to have 3 spots removed on the west side of Vistamar and 2 spots on the east side to allow for clear sight. And that is our presentation if you have any questions.
Okay, great. Let's see. Is it the board's wish that the staff report be included as part of the record? I guess that was a staff report, but just for yucks. Do we all agree?
Yes.
Mary and John?
Bill Rotella.
Bill, I thought so. Okay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 Any opposition? Motion carries unanimously. Looking for members of the public wishing to speak on this item. I don't see anything. Tricia?
Chair, we have one person who signed up to speak on this item, William Brown.
Is Mr. Brown there?
Can you hear me, Madam
Yes.
Chair?
Yes.
Okay, I'll be very brief. William Brown, President of the Central Beach Alliance. As the engineer for this project stated, there was a joint public participation meeting along with a Zoom CBA meeting of our membership for this proposed temporary fire station at this location. One of the major concerns that came out of this meeting was the traffic issues that could be as a result of not only the public parking lot, but the entry and exiting of emergency vehicles on the Vistamar. I know that that's kind of the site plan that you're looking at and voting on tonight is not part of this, the traffic, but however, we've had a commitment working with the district commissioner, vice mayor, Glassman's office and Transportation and Mobility to work with some type of resolution on possibly removing some of the medians down Vistamar, along with some of the additional parking spaces. And that is a work in progress. That is acceptable to the Central Beach Alliance and to the immediate neighbors and condo associations as we continue to work forward on this project. And staff also participated in our presentation along with fire rescue personnel. And it was a great project to garner the support of the community. So with that, I would ask that this commission approve the recommendation and forward it to the City Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Tricia, do you see any other members of the public wishing to speak on this item?
No, we didn't have anyone else sign up to speak on the item, and no hands are raised.
Okay. I closed the public hearing and I'm bringing it back to the board for further discussion or motions. Anyone?
Okay, I'll move to approve with the conditions.
Motion by Mary, second by Jay. Any discussion on the motion? I do not see any hands, so I am going to proceed to call the roll. Jackie?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Coleman?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Vice Chair Mary?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That takes us to item number 5, PLN ULDR 2007-0001. This is not quasi-judicial, so I am not going to ask for disclosures. Is it Carl Ann who's presenting?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Chair.
Sorry, yes, that'll be me presenting.
Okay, hang on, Carl Ann. Michael?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I need to recuse myself. I filed a form with the clerk for this item and the next two because these items affect my family's properties.
Okay, Michael. Well, I hope you're going to stick with us and not like go out
You
to
better
dinner.
believe I will. I'm gonna stick right there with you.
Okay.
Mr. Weymouth, this is the airport zoning. I think you're speaking to items 6, 7, and 8, if I'm correct.
I'm sorry. You are correct.
Correct.
I retract my recusal and we'll table it for one more item.
Okay, terrific. Item number 5, Carl Ann, you're up.
Okay, good evening, Chair, members of the board. Carlann Grant with Urban Design and Planning. Sorry, I don't know why it's doing that. Let's pause it. I'm here to present on I am sorry, it keeps going. Give me 1 second. Let me just figure this out. I'm gonna have to, it appears it's gonna keep going, so I'll switch back and forth. But good evening, I'm here to present on the ordinance to amend the section of the code, section 47-14. I'm just gonna do it this way, I'm sorry. It's just gonna be easier. Section 47-14 to provide for to provide the requirements to have the Chapter 333 requirements in our ULDR, Unified Land Development Regulations. Chapter 333 requires that all governments that have an airport hazard area, which are any areas that an airport hazard or obstruction might be established, are required to adopt, administer, and enforce airport zoning and land use compatibility regulations. The state requirements mandate that the land use and zoning regulations be amended to address land use restrictions, noise, height limitations, locational requirements, permit requirements, administration, and enforcement for airport protection. The regulations are intended to minimize the exposure of adjacent properties to the airport hazard and noise and to prohibit incompatible land uses and structures around the airports. The regulations are also necessary to ensure safe, efficient use and preservation of the navigable airspace. So the two locations that are affected by this ordinance would be the Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport, which is on the northern uptown area, and also the heliport, which is in the downtown along Southeast Second Court. This slide here shows the area that is over by the executive airport that is affected. So the areas that are in and around the two zoning districts that are airport zoning districts, the general aviation district and the airport industrial park district. It shows the different areas that is in and around that is affected. So some of the regulations are to propose regulations for locational requirements. For instance, for the runway protection zones, we have that incompatible uses are prohibited, such as buildings and structures, transportation facilities, fuel storage facilities, hazardous material storage, and wastewater treatment facilities. And again, there's a few others that are prohibited, but these are just a few of the uses that are not allowed within the runway protection zones. For noise contour, it's addressed by stating that any lands under the noise contour that is greater than or equal to 65 dNL for the executive airport shall be a part of the noise control of the aircraft noise control zone. Prohibited land uses that are greater than or less than would be uses such as residential uses and educational facilities aside from the aviation schools. Another regulation would be for land use restrictions. So for instance, there's no smoke, glare, or other visual hazard causing operation within a 3 mile of the runway at a public airport. Another one would be having no electronic interference with the navigational aids or radio communication. Next slide. And so some of the requirements for the permit would be that anyone that's proposing to construct or alter or allow an airport obstruction within the airport hazard area would be that would be in violation of the airport protection zoning regulations must apply for a permit. They have to comply with the federal requirements for notification, and this would only be applied to the FXC and DT1, so the heliport and the area that's in and around the executive airport. It is important to note that a permit may not be approved solely on the basis of the FAA's determination that the construction or alteration of an obstruction was not on an airport hazard. And with that, if you have any questions, I'm here. We also have folks from the executive airport, such as the airport manager, Rufus James. We also have Carlton Harrison, Jerry Pryor, Florence Straw, and our consultants from the Montgomery Consulting Group. We have Monty Geddes, Pratik Sharma, and from HMMH, we have Bob Metzer to be able to answer any questions.
Thank you, Carl Ann. That was the staff report, so we do not need to make it part of the record. Do I have any questions from board members? Oh, wait, let me just open it to the public. I am opening the public hearing. Does anyone wish to speak on case number 5, PLN ULDR 2007-0001? Tricia, do we have anyone signed up?
We do not have anyone signed up to speak on this item.
Okay, I'm closing the public hearing and bringing it back to the board. Coleman.
Yeah, I just had a question about the noise zones. You say that property falling within those noise zones, residential is prohibited. So have we turned a number of homes, if we adopt this, have we turned a number of homes into non-conforming uses?
Sorry, let's see if one of the consultants would like to answer that. Bob or Monty?
This is Prateek with Montgomery Consulting. So all the land uses that are already existing are grandfathered in this case. So anything that's existing will not need to be changed or demolished or anything of the sort. It's only applying to any new land uses or any changes that might happen.
So if somebody has a residential property, a home in the noise zones where it's greater than 65 and their home burns down, they can rebuild that?
Yes, because it is an existing land use.
Okay.
All set, Coleman?
Yes, thanks, Catherine.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Would this prohibit a school at the soccer stadium?
If the school is, this is Bob Menser, if the school is within the airport noise zone contour, and it's not based on an aviation type school, then yes, it would be.
Would it be prohibited?
Correct.
Okay.
And to answer, for some reason, I couldn't get off mute before, but currently there are no residential properties within the DNL 65 contour.
Any other questions? Mary?
Am I off mute, Catherine? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to thank Carl for a great presentation. That was really good. Thank you.
Okay, you cut on us, Mary, but I think you were thanking Carl Ann for a great presentation.
I was doing that. Can you hear me?
Yes, now, and I second.
Oh,
that.
I moved to approve. Is that what you were asking? Yes.
Yes, I was. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Jackie. Any discussion on the motion? I have no hands, so I will call the roll. Jay?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Brad?
No.
Coleman?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Vice Chair Mary?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So,
Chair, if I may interrupt, it looks like one of our members of the public has their hand raised, so I'm going to let the moderator ask the question if it's not too late.
no, it's not too late.
Okay, Mauricio, could you please let the
Yes,
person that's got
she's
their-
already unmuted. Go right ahead.
Hi, good evening. This is Stephanie Toothaker. I'm sorry, I had my hand raised. I tried to speak before the vote was taken. I wanted to let you know that we just received approval for a sports management school that is going to be run out of the Inter Miami Stadium. So if this prohibits that school, then we obviously have to object to it. We received approval from the city's administration.
Okay. Does staff have any comment on that?
This is Dwayne Spence, Assistant City Attorney. The regulation that we're putting into place or that you're adopting today is required by state statute. And what it provides for with regards to the uses are those regulated by the FAA. If, as Ms. Toothaker has mentioned, FAA has approved, there is a provision in the ordinance that provides for the approval of the FAA in certain circumstances.
Okay.
So there's a general mandate for them with regards to the types of schools, but the ordinance itself does provide for the allowance of approval of uses with the approval of the FAA.
Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to go through that process. I would just ask that the city not pass an ordinance that prohibits a use that was just granted without us having some discussions.
Dwayne?
It's not prohibiting the use. So we're adopting the ordinance pursuant to state law, pursuant to federal regulations to comply. We're probably 2 years overdue in doing this. And we they're doing it in consultation with the FAA and the state. So I don't think that there will be a conflict. We have 2 more public hearings before the city commission. So we can go over the specific language with Mr. Faker and see where our comfort level is at that time.
Thank you. Mary?
Yeah, I just, I have heard of this before, Stephanie, if you're still on. In context with another project I was working on, the proximity of a school to an airport. But I just want to make sure that this wouldn't impact the high school stadium for Stranahan and Lauderdale, would it? Because it's, it's a stadium.
Mary, who are you posing that question to?
I guess Dwayne, I don't know.
Okay.
Somebody who's smart enough to answer, which is not me.
Dwayne?
You can get back to me. I don't want to stop the vote on this because I know we need to move it ahead to the commission, but.
No, we should be fine. There are about 3 different elements to the ordinance. I think that the consultant may speak to the stadium use itself and how this ordinance affects it. But I don't believe in our review of it that it has any impact on that.
Okay.
Correct, the stadium, sorry.
Hello?
Sorry, this is Bob Menser. I was just stating that, correct, a stadium use would not be impacted.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second, and we took a vote, and then we got sidetracked. Would someone from the city attorney's office tell me if we should vote again, or if I should ask people if any of that commentary affects their vote? How do I proceed to close this item out?
What was the roll call actually called?
Yes, it was, and we had 1 dissent.
Okay, so well, you can poll not necessarily poll, but you can elicit whether or not there were any objections if anyone wants to change their vote.
I'll do that.
Anyone on the prevailing side can pose a motion to rehear
Right.
or reconsider.
Right. Okay. So I'm looking at my screen and I see no hands raised. So I'm going to poll the board members. Jay, do you, wait, who did I start with? I think I started with Jay, but even if I didn't, Jay, do you wish to change your I vote?
I thought Dwayne said that one of the dissenters would have to. Was that what you heard, Dwayne?
A motion for rehearing?
No, someone on the prevailing side of the vote would have to make that motion.
Right. Well, so okay, Jay, are you making a motion for a rehearing?
No, I'm not.
Michael, are you making a motion for rehearing?
No.
John? Are you making a motion for?
I'll make a motion for reconsideration of that item, yes.
Is there
Just to see where it's.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Jackie. Okay. So we had the presentation. Does anyone have any discussion?
I would like to ask, Stephanie, are you still there?
I am.
Explain to me the school that they want to put in the stadium.
We received approval from the city manager and city attorney to add a sports management school that will be housed in the Northwest Club and the training facility.
So it's a school. Is it like a college? What is it?
Yes, it's a sports management school. It's an English, it's a very famous English school that that graduates students in a sports management program. So obviously being on site at the stadium is significant, not only for the, for the Inter Miami team, but also for the City of Fort Lauderdale. So it would be, but it is an actual school running out of the stadium, yes.
And what's the age?
Jackie?
Our college
Yes.
students.
We've heard from the city attorney's office that the application does not prohibit Ms. Toothaker's client's use, and it is going to the city commission. So
Okay.
what do you think?
Is that
Okay,
what?
I just wanted to understand it and, I don't know.
Okay, well, we're not hearing anything about the school, so I do have other hands. Do you have any other questions for Stephanie?
No, I'm good.
Okay, Brad.
I didn't understand Dwayne to say that the use was permitted. I understood him to say that there's some loopholes there that allow some exceptions that can be applied to it. I just don't know, and that's why I voted no, is because I don't think we have enough opportunity to explore those, in my opinion, explore those loopholes that would allow a school to operate on the soccer grounds. And I think it's a good idea to have a school there. I don't know. I think the use is very limited in regards to, well, I don't know if it's limited. That's the whole point, is that I don't think I have enough information to vote yes when Mr. Spence is saying there are some loopholes there that would allow schools or whatever uses to be at that stadium. So I would like to explore that before I would vote yes. And I would hope that some people on the board would agree with me that that needs to be reviewed, those loopholes, before we automatically vote yes. We can assure that there's some sort of mechanism that would benefit the city of Fort Lauderdale.
So Brad, would you be comfortable with sending this to the city commission?
I'd be more comfortable with sending it to the city commission, but like I said, I guess it goes to the city commission. If you guys vote yes and I vote no, it goes to the city commission. I mean, I don't think I would still vote yes. I think my opinion would be no until I have more information on it. I don't just necessarily want to kick the can.
Okay, I understand. I do not have, wait a second. Coleman.
Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, just Dwayne, just a quick question. I mean, you mentioned, and I think the staff report mentioned, that we were doing this because it was required by either state statute or by federal regulation. And I guess my question is, to the extent that that's true, are we going beyond what we're required to do? Do we have any leeway under statute, or are we, I mean, are we required to do exactly what's in front of us? I guess is my question.
We are required to do exactly what's in front of us. We do not have leeway, but in all transparency, the state is governing this process, and they haven't been that receptive to any of the, or in my understanding of any of the ordinances adopted by other municipalities in the state in trying to comply, or haven't been too happy with them. But we have, to the best of our ability with our consultant, tried to meet the criteria set out by the state and complying with the statute in this regard.
I think that Stephanie's 73 acres project is one that just about everyone on this board is supportive of, or at least the project generally. It's a very important economic generator in the city. If we wanted to, is there anything that this board can do in connection with this vote to make sure that that school can proceed?
So here's the issue with the school. So in amending this ordinance, we're actually not changing, well, there are changes to the permitted uses within the zoning districts, but those zoning districts contain uses that comply with the lease agreements and those arrangements that Ms. Toofaker is very much aware of, those types of restrictions that were placed upon the property by the FAA. Those arrangements aren't being, that structure is not being changed by the proposal here. I think the only thing that does have an impact, it may be the decimal rating table. And again, we have provisions in the ordinance that provides for input from the FAA that allows for the very process that we've undergone with regards to getting the approval for the school presently. So we'll have the same obstacle The city really is not the final say on this, and the ordinance does not block the project. The bigger the gorilla in the room will be the FAA, and if that's handled, then that's handled.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions by the board? I was in the process of polling.
I did. This is John Barranco. I did have a question.
Hi, John.
So I made the motion for reconsideration. The reason I did that is after, I thought that was a great subject that was brought up by one of the board members. I think it was Jackie, about the school. And I thought, who would put a school there, you know? And I just moved on and voted. Had I heard that there was a school being planned at the soccer stadium, my vote may not have been the same. That's why I made the motion to reconsider. So
Right. The motion for reconsideration has passed, and we will have another vote.
okay. So did it pass?
Yes, it passed.
Okay.
All right. Do you have any?
All right. Well, that's the discussion for now.
Okay. Mary.
Oh, I just want to say that I encountered this in another project, as I said, which I'm not going to go into, but it related back to safety issues. So rather than deciding those here tonight, which I don't think we would have enough information to do, and given that Duane has said that this is what the state is requiring us to do, I would suggest that we move this along to the commission, that we go ahead and follow. Don't make me repeat all that. What?
Repeat yourself, Mary. You cut out on us.
Oh no, how could I ever remember all this? Okay, I was gonna say, I encountered this in another project. When it comes, and actually a couple things that I've done over the years with schools. So what it comes down to are safety issues, which I don't think we're well enough versed here tonight to be really discussing. But if it's required by state statute, I think we pass it on to the commission, and there's time before that for them to investigate the safety issues. I don't know that we want to sit here and just say that we know it's safe for students of any age when we really don't know. And by the way, as you all know, I have really advocated strenuously for the high school stadium. So of course I'm hoping everything is going to work out. But I think if it's required by state statute, we need to get in compliance, get it done, and then allow Ms. Toothaker to go through the process to establish what she needs to establish, in which case they'll investigate the safety issues.
Thank you. Jackie?
I think Mary cleared up my questions by her questions. Thank you.
Okay, so we now have Jay.
Yeah, so if we were to majority vote no on this, what then happens? Doesn't it still go to the commission?
Shari?
That is correct. It moves forward with a recommendation for
It moves forward to the commission regardless of how we vote. Thank you.
Okay, so we are starting from scratch. We had a motion for reconsideration that was approved. So apologies, Duane. Do I just start a roll call all over again?
Another motion needs to be made.
Okay, do we have a motion on item number 5? Mary, Jackie?
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'll move to approve with.
Thank you.
With whatever, and then we can vote. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Is there a second? Jackie? Brad? Jay? John? Bill? Is there a second for item?
I'll second that. I'll second that just so we can get to a vote.
Thank you, John. All right. Jay?
No.
Michael?
No,
Was that a no, Michael?
that is correct. No.
Thank you. John?
No.
Brad?
No.
Coleman?
No.
Bill?
No.
Jackie,
No.
Mary,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Board may,
Yes.
will it be okay for us to note that the issue, because the commission will ask us what the issue is mainly the school and not any other issue within the ordinance?
I think that the record clearly reflects that, Dwayne. So my 2 cents is yes, it's
okay. Great.
And Chairwoman Moss, do you mind if I just interject? This is John Barranco. The main distinction for me between the two is, even as an architect and designing school facilities, educational occupancies are for children. Once you're dealing with adults, it's dealt with as a business occupancy like any other business. So the after school programs are dealt with much differently in the code, from educational occupancies to business occupancies. So for adult education, maybe there could be some sort of distinction, and that would be something I would recommend to anybody who's looking at this in the future.
Thank you. Moving
Catherine?
on. Yes, Mary.
Let me ask you, I don't want to belabor this, but
we're done and we have a lengthy item coming up.
I know we do. I just wanted to ask one question. Would it have been better to amend this or just leave it to the commission to amend it?
Well, we'll leave it for the commission. I think
Okay.
I'll have present the ordinance to Ms. Tupaker and have some discussions about how that affects and impacts the project, and see how if we can introduce amended language to address those concerns.
Thank you. We now have items 6, 7, and 8, which I believe all relate to the downtown master plan. Would staff tell me if it is appropriate for us to consider all 3 applications together, but to vote separately?
Good evening, Jim Hetzel, Principal Urban Planner and Chair. You are correct at that.
Okay, thank you, Jim. This is not quasi-judicial. So I am going to ask you to kick off 6, 7, and 8.
Madam Chair, before you do so,
Yes, Michael.
I'm sorry, but I think I'm at the right items. 6, 7, and 8, I need to recuse myself. As previously stated, these items affect my family's properties, and so I have filed a form with the clerk, so I'll be recusing myself from 6, 7, and 8.
Understand. Thank you, Michael.
Catherine, I'm not sure if I own commercial property within the proposed areas, does that automatically, does that say that, because I don't know, I'm just listening to Michael.
Brad.
Yes.
The question is whether or not you have a voting conflict, and I don't think that Dwayne or Shari want me explaining it to you, but I think one of them will step in.
So I can weigh in generally. So this is a legislative act. I know that it deals with a particular area, but if the vote does not have an impact that is special to you in particular, it does not create a voting conflict.
Okay. Thank you.
You're
Any
welcome.
other issues? Okay, Jim, you're up.
Great, thank you. I just want to do some house cleaning items first. Call into record. I believe you received an email from Ella about some corrections made to Exhibit 3 on page 7, and I just wanted to read that into the record. There were some corrections to some language dealing with the existing site plans in the downtown rack, and revise some of that language. So I just wanted to call that out. I believe you received that email from Ella on Monday. The other thing I wanted to say before I started the presentation was, this presentation might look familiar to you because it is the same presentation that was given about a year ago in October 2019. However, there are some additional elements to the presentation, but we thought it was good as staff to give you an overview again, since it's been some time since the last presentation in October. So some of the slides may look familiar to you all, and I just wanted to call that out so you were aware of it. And with that, I'm going to share my screen. So tonight I'm going to give an overview on the codification for the downtown master plan. And as I mentioned, kind of identify some of the differences that have occurred since the last time we were before you. As you know, some of the history there, the downtown master plan was adopted in 2003 with updates that occurred in 2007. And it set a vision for downtown for a live, work, play environment. In 2018, we were directed by the City Commission to look at codifying the master plan. And we are now here before you with 2020 updates that I will run through right now. So on the screen, the codification summary slide, you'll see a couple of them have in the parens there, the word updated. So there's been some changes to those particular items that are on the screen since the last time we were before you. And I'm going to run through all of these again, but I just wanted to kind of identify what's been updated, and we'll get those items in a little bit more detail as I present. We added to our public outreach chart here. You'll see it went all the way to September 16th, 2020. It's quite an extensive list for just one project when we were working on multiple projects in the city. But you can see how extensive our outreach has been with the community. So some of the highlights from public comments that we received, and this is just in general, it doesn't get into every specific one, but some of the general comments we received was talk about the character area boundaries and looking at those boundaries and the patterns of development that has occurred over the years and whether those boundary changes should occur or not. So we're going to kind of walk through what's being proposed. In general, some of the other comments we got from the public that were building height, tower separation, transition zones. There was also something we put for, that was put forth about providing flexibility to an applicant about site-specific standards, for instance, on a case-by-case basis. There was also some concerns from public comments about the applicability of the downtown master plan on non-residential development. And that you might hear a little bit about that as well tonight. However, we do want to point out that something has to apply to development, whether it's the existing zoning that is in place for downtown, or is it the master plan moving forward. As we're moving forward, we're proposing that all uses are subject to the downtown master plan, both residential and non-residential. So we just want to kind of highlight that. Some other comments we got, which we're going to wait for some further direction, which are on the bottom there, is to implement a minimum residential unit size. So downtown, unlike other residential zoning districts or other districts throughout the city, have a minimum unit size of 400 square feet. The downtown is the only one that does not. So staff thinks this is appropriate, but we need policy direction on that. There's also some discussion about residential parking in the downtown because the core, the RAC CC has an exemption for parking in general. And then some more additional discussion on open space and landscaping as we move forward. We might do further analysis on the criteria for more meaningful results in an urban fabric. So basically, we might have to do a little bit more research and seeing what the trends are versus what we're proposing. We're going to ask for policy direction on that as well. So one of the elements, and you might recall this from previous presentations, of the framework, the planning framework for the downtown is character areas. And the reason for the character areas is to establish a particular built form depending on which character area the projects are located in. Obviously, the downtown core is the most dense character area with taller buildings, slender towers, and so forth. It's a central business district, so it should feel that way. The near downtown is not as dense. There is requirements for building shoulder heights. The towers are not as tall. And then you have urban neighborhood, which is more of a neighborhood scale character area with residential units that are townhomes, walk-up units, apartments, and so forth. It's less intense and less building height for that character area. So as I mentioned in the updated slide, there are some changes that are being proposed to the character area boundaries. The downtown core would be expanded to Northwest 4th Street to the north, and it also goes westward along Broward Boulevard. The near downtown kind of gets modified as well, where it is proposed to expand northward to 6th Street, and also a little sliver along Federal Highway north of 6th Street would expand or be wider. So I have the next slide kind of side by side, so I'll get there. Also, the urban neighborhood character area, those would change in areas adjacent to Rio Vista, Victoria Park, and Tarpon Bend. And I'm gonna go to the next slide because I think it's better to show like a side-by-side comparison of the existing character area boundaries and the proposed. And I'll leave the slide up for a minute and kind of highlight, if you see my cursor, kind of where these changes are occurring.
And Jim, just a quick correction. You said Rio Vista, and I think you meant Victoria Park, Tarpon River, and Sailboat Bend on the urban neighborhood character boundaries.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, did I say it wrong? So I'm going to kind of walk through some of these changes again, so it's clear. But if you see my cursor up here, the northern part of downtown on Federal Highway, existing had a sliver that was near downtown, which is, from a developable perspective, those blocks aren't very deep. So there's a proposal to widen that, so that would change from urban neighborhood to near downtown and make this wider. You'll see this area here, which is Fat Village area, that would go from urban neighborhood to near downtown. Then you have the sliver here along Federal Highway next to Victoria Park. That would go from near downtown to urban neighborhood. As I was mentioning, the downtown core would expand northward to 4th, and then also west along Broward Boulevard. Then you have, against Sailboat Bend and Tarpon down here in these two areas, a change from near downtown to urban neighborhood. And so I just want to make sure that a side-by-side comparison so you can see that. So transition zones, and the purpose for the transition zones is to add additional compatibility requirements for those parts of the downtown rack that are adjacent to residential neighborhoods. So staff is proposing some expansion of this as it relates to the location of the residential transition zones, which are the ones adjacent to the neighborhoods, and also a commercial transition zone, which is there's not as many locations on downtown, but you can see it's down here in the southern along Federal Highway and a sliver over by Sailboat Bend area along Southwest 7th. So what the transition zones are, and I'll go to the next slide, I think it's a good one to have. They deal with the maximum building height, and this is for the purpose of mass scale and compatibility. Based on where it is located along the rack boundary, there is maximum heights that are related to the adjacent zoning district in the residential neighborhood. So for example, if the adjacent residential district has a maximum building height of 55 feet, say for 5 stories, it can only go 2.5 times that in the downtown rack. That would be the maximum. So you'll see on the slide here, it says either 200 feet or mid-block, whichever is less, of where that transition zone is located for whatever development occurs within that 200 feet or mid-block area. Another element for our compatibility criteria is dealing with density. So if there are projects proposed in those particular areas that are shown on the screen, there is additional compatibility criteria, which is our neighborhood compatibility criteria that applies to those projects. Based on the color, you can see the blue dotted line and the red dotted line that indicates the locations. So I always find this slide interesting because this is our existing zoning. So the existing zoning is very cumbersome to apply, very cumbersome to implement, and it's difficult to establish a pattern of consistency versus the downtown master plan. But it's also, as you can see, the screen kind of shows how cumbersome it is just from the content that's on the screen. And this is what we're going to. This is what we propose going to. It's much cleaner. It's much easier to understand. It's much practical as far as what a property owner should know and expect from the predictability of the built form, and also for the community to understand and the residents in the neighborhood to say, okay, here is the form, here's what's applicable to these projects that are being built. It's easier to implement, it's easier for everyone to understand. So again, going from something like this to something like this as far as understandability and predictability and expectations. So the good old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Here we have on the left some projects that were built prior to the adoption of the downtown master plan. And on the right, those are resulting from the master plan. And the difference there, is the mass and scale of buildings. The size of the floor plates or the tower floor plates, if you will, are limited in the downtown master plan versus what the existing zoning or prior code allowed for. And that results in a different form. It results in a different built form. It restricts light and air in the area and to the adjacent properties. And you can see the difference between what was built and where we're going as a city when it comes to applicability on building design. Here's another example with images of before and after. The picture on the left is New River Landing, which is interesting because that one's located on the river, which is even more important, I think, because you have public access to the river. It's a public amenity. Yet buildings that are large and expansive like this limit the light, the air, the feel of the experience for the public along the river. Another aspect is that the downtown master plan does not restrict quality design. You know, there is a little bit more of a struggle for staff because you deal with quantitative elements, which are the previous slides had the tower separation, the numbers, basically the development standards that you design to, versus the qualitative stuff is a little bit more difficult because it's very subjective. You know, it's not beauty's in the eye of the beholder. But the downtown master plan does not restrict creativity. It does not restrict good quality, and it doesn't restrict the building material, you know, high quality building material. And honestly, you know, this always tends to be a little bit of a struggle for us because it's so qualitative and subjective, but we push our staff very hard to get the best designs that we can through the development review process. And a lot of the things that you see being built in the downtown area are efforts from city staff to get the best. So I just want to kind of highlight that, is that we work hard for that. This is another example, you know, building materials and variation in design. And what's interesting is that Whole Foods, I think, is in Denver. And so that you can see that at the corner, they have like a second level that's an outdoor eating or dining area, I guess, for when you get the food to go. But building corner design is important, you know, the experience along the public realm. And again, this does not restrict, the downtown master plan does not restrict creativity. I'm just, you know, trying to achieve these things. So I'm going to walk through the different codification items. And again, these slides might look familiar to you, but the floor plate size is one of them. And looking back at the character area as a framework for how you achieve certain building designs and building form, you can see the downtown core, near downtown urban neighborhood, floor plate sizes are limited based on the use. So you have office environment versus residential. And the difference is, again, based on the character, going from the more dense urban core to the less dense urban neighborhood. These numbers are in the downtown master plan today. We're not proposing to change any of them. It is, we're just proposing to codify what's in the plan today. Same thing, tower separation. What this means is the distance between towers, either on the same lot or on separate parcels that are adjacent to each other. And if the distance needs to be maintained at 60 feet between the towers. So for instance, if it is a single lot with towers on it, those towers, as you can see in the graphic on the right, the image on the right, need to maintain 60 feet. If it happens to be two separate parcels, each separate property owner would have to maintain that 60 feet by providing 30 feet on each property. Building street wall length. So this is the experience for the pedestrian and public realm as you walk along the street. So again, we're not proposing to change the number. The downtown master plan talks about 300 feet maximum length of a street wall. And also the ability and requirements for that experience to a building articulation and certain treatments and breaks in building design. So you can see the graphic or image or picture all the way back on the bottom left kind of has this breezeway through the building on the first level to create a certain experience there, and it breaks it up as far as you're walking by and experiencing that street wall or that building, if you will. Maximum building podium heights. So again, based on the character areas, these vary, with the core not having a maximum building podium height because the towers could go straight up. It's more for your downtown and urban neighborhood. That, you know, the requirement for this, and you know, we can't put parking underground in Florida, or if you try to, that's very, very expensive. What we tend to deal with are parking podiums. So the building podium tends to be a parking podium. And what we try to do is get those parking podiums to be screened in line and make sure that they are not exceeding the height established in the downtown master plan. And again, you know, this particular item ties to the qualitative side of things in the downtown master plan, is that providing if you're providing a parking podium, The qualitative side of it is how do you screen it? Because lining it with an active use gets challenging unless you have a bigger property. We then look at the qualitative elements of how best to screen that parking podium with the highest quality material, and making sure that you can't see the parking podium. Open space. So open space, we are proposing what's in the, I'm actually going to the next slide. So what you have on the top of the slide is existing language that's in our code that deals with all the downtown zoning districts except for the RAC-CC. And it has a formula based on the intensity or density of the project to get so much open space. What's on the bottom is proposed by staff to deal with residential in the RAC-CC and also for non-residential uses throughout the RAC. That's based on a percentage. Now, as I mentioned in a previous slide, we are looking to explore this in more detail, that perhaps we do an additional analysis to look if this is the best approach and whether or not this is the best to get what we need as far as downtown of having open space. However, we do recognize, and staff is asking for a little further direction, the importance of open space in an urban core and how do you achieve it and what is the best formula or approach to get there. So this may change, but as far as right now, we're going forward with this and asking for further direction. Another part of the codification is adopting streetscape design. Now, the challenge here is we do not have jurisdictional control of all the streets. We have FDOT in Broward County to deal with, but what we're asking or what we're promoting is coordination with those agencies to make sure that the street cross sections reflect what's in the downtown master plan. However, what we do have control over are the local streets, the city streets. And we're going to be codifying this particular cross section to deal with local streets. And you can see the image, the first picture on the left. And once you start to implement it on local streets, what the result of that is. You know, it tends to have exactly what the intent and goal is in the downtown master plan and these cross sections that we utilize all the time. Another aspect of it that we're trying to, kind of address is the conflict with utilities. Sometimes what's happening with some projects and what we've experienced as staff is that there's a conflict because utilities are either underground or above ground. And then all of a sudden, the street trees get compromised or something happens to that effect, where you need to accommodate the street trees and all these utilities. Therefore, some things need to move around. The building might have to get shipped back, but the intent for the cross section should always be maintained. So the review and approval process, I think you all are very familiar. The review and approval process, for the most part, all the development applications in the downtown are a site plan level 2, which is DRC. Once DRC has done its technical review, it then is sent up to the City Commission for a call-up. There are some situations where a level 3 is required in the downtown, either for building height or some, for instance, in the urban neighborhood, you can go from 6 stories to 12 stories as a conditional use, which is a site plan level 3. So there's some nuances there that some projects have to go through a level 3 application review and approval. For a commission to call an item up, they need to identify based on a criteria that's something that staff has misapplied, something in the process. What staff is proposing is that that criteria get modified and that requirement be removed and that the commission can call an item up regardless. They can call it up if they just want to look at the project. There's no criteria in the sense of saying staff did something wrong or misapplied. So that criteria is being proposed to be changed. There's also going to be a process for an applicant to ask for relief. So for instance, if they have a site-specific standard that does not meet the downtown master plan, but still achieves the intent, they can go forward with a request to the City Commission. That would be an actual City Commission item, action item, an agenda item, if they wish to go down that road. So just real quick on timeline, we're back in front of you today, September 2020. Wanted to give the overview and put the items back in front of you at the direction of the City Commission asked us to do this. Plus, we also have some changes from what we saw you last. And from here, it would go on to the City Commission either October or November. And with that, I will take questions.
Thank you, Jim. Great presentation. I am going to say that the staff report is already part of the record. I don't have any hands, so I'm going to open the public hearing. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Tricia?
Chair, we have 3 members of the public who've signed up to speak on this item. The first one is Dan Lindblade. He's on the speakers list.
Do we have Dan? Are you here, Dan?
He is here. He will be moved over from the attendee list to the panelist.
Let us know when you're there, Dan. Dan? Hi, Dan. Unmute yourself.
Mute myself.
There you go.
Good evening. Good evening. This is Dan. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. This is Dan Lindblade. I'm the president and CEO of the Greater Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce. I bring you greetings from Fort Walton Beach, Florida, where I have been at a Florida Association of Chambers Professionals conference right in the middle of the hurricane. So I did not pick the greatest time to be away, but I wanted to talk to you. I represent about 500,000 employees, many of which work in the urban core in our downtown area. And we had a presentation from staff about a little over a year ago. They came in and gave us a high-level presentation at our Government Affairs Council. And we worked with staff, met with Ella and Anthony and also Jim, and so Jim, commissioners, to talk about our concerns and the lack of a comprehensive economic analysis as it relates to non-residential real estate. And you saw at the beginning of your presentation, you saw that there were concerns about it last year. Those concerns as it relates to a chilling effect on residential real estate or non-residential real estate have not been addressed. And we feel that without significant economic review as to the impact of these codifications for non-residential commercial real estate, we feel that it's too risky to move forward with it at this point in time. And especially when we have 13.1% unemployment. We don't know where we're going to be in the near term over the next 2 to 3 years once we get out of COVID. Many people are working remotely. Many companies are looking at different ways to modify their work environment with virtual work from home or different opportunities there to save money. So we think at best, this would basically shut down any non-residential construction. And for that reason, without economic analysis, we would ask that you recommend removing it from whatever you send forward to the full commission. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, but we pretty much stand by that. I would add, finally, Madam Chair, that your staff has done a phenomenal job in listening to the community. We noticed the outreach, but most of our questions and concerns were done on our research that we came in, we met, we asked questions. And so the biggest concern we have, again, non-residential as it relates to not having an economic feasibility report. Thank you.
So, Mr. Lindblade, the downtown master plan amendments have been around for, I'm gonna guesstimate, 2 years now. Has the chamber put together any sort of impact information with regards to the economic impact? Or is your objection?
Madam Chair, we feel that's the city's obligation. We'd be happy to do that. We were not asked to do that, but we would be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask if there's any questions. I think Mary Fertig has a question for you.
Yeah. Dan, so can you just tell me exactly what is your request? That this be deferred until they, oh, go ahead.
That you remove non-residential from the codification.
Okay, thank you.
Your request to be that an economic impact study would happen.
Well, I would like that too. So I guess you could add that on there, that we would like to see what the analysis is for that. And short of that, it's kind of a shot in the dark.
Why would you wholeheartedly request that all commercial development be removed from the scope of this ordinance? How would that work with the impact on the residential portion of the city? How would that work?
Well, first of all, I think mainly the non-residential aspects of development have been operating well within the guidelines. You saw 2 charts that Jim showed on the planning and zoning criteria that are used. And obviously the second one was a lot more simplistic, but those modifications would now be codified into law. And that's why we want those to be removed until we know what kind of impact it's going to have on potential non-residential development. And short of that, we really don't believe that codification is going to be a positive nature. So that's why we would want it to remain where it is right now until we have that economic impact analysis.
Mary, I jumped in and cut you off.
You asked my question. Thank you.
All right, so Mr. Lindblade, you want this, may I just give you a recent example in Victoria Park of a 13-story building that was approved because it met the plan at the time, not law, but plan, on Northeast 7th Avenue. 13 stories on Northeast 7th Avenue. That's not on Federal Highway. There is nothing within, there's nothing on that side of Victoria Park of that height. If the downtown master plan had been law, as we say, then that project would have had to accommodate a certain tower setting, which probably would have limited the height. I'm puzzled, troubled by a wholehearted rejection of the plan when things like that are happening in our city.
Is there a question in your statement, ma'am?
I guess not. So thank you. And I will now see if I have any other hands. I don't. So, oh, Coleman.
Thanks, Catherine. Dan, thanks for that information. I guess the request for the economic impact study, I guess, leads me to believe that there are certain parts that the commercial industry feels in the plan that or the ordinance that we're looking to pass on to the commission today are problematic. I assume they're all not equally problematic. Which ones are most problematic? I think when we had this first come up last year, there was some talk about open space, I think was one of the problem issues. Can you just elaborate on the parts of the plan here that the development community or the commercial development community finds most problematic?
I cannot, Coleman, because I'm not a land use attorney or expert in that, but I can sure get that information for you with specificity. The main concern is that as we look at this with unemployment as high as it is right now and a really risky post-COVID downtown urban core business district, we're very concerned without analysis as it relates to not the land use per se, or tower separation or open space or trees or pedestrian walkways, none of that stuff. We think the staff's done a good job on that. We just don't know what we don't know. And for us to not really analyze it from an economic perspective is short-sighted. And I think we should really go through that exercise. And that's why with the wisdom of our board of directors, 80 members who are business leaders in South Florida, they felt that wholeheartedly, unanimously voted to not have non-residential codified within the master plan. We support a lot of the other aspects of it and want you to move ahead with it, but not the non-residential part.
Coleman, are you good?
I mean, it is what it is. There's no examples. I would think that if there were problematic provisions that the development community would be bringing them us. I think a wholesale rejection without a lot of details doesn't help us too much.
Thank you, Coleman. I don't see any other hands up. Tricia, do we have another member of the public wishing to speak?
Yes, our second speaker is Allison Foster, and she has called in. Her number starts with 1727.
Allison?
Mauricio needs to move her over as a panelist, so it'll just be a moment.
She's on the panelist list now. Allison, could you go ahead and hit *6 to unmute yourself?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome, thank you so much. As you know, I'm Allison Foster. I serve as the Tarpon River Civic Association president. So we have submitted backup, and first I'll start by saying I want to thank the staff for the amount of time that they've spent talking with us about all of the various concerns and questions that we've had and all the points that we've submitted. There's two key points specifically that have been included in the backup materials and line up with the staff requests that are really important to our Tarpon River neighborhood. And as a reminder, if you're looking at the map, Tarpon River's boundaries are the New River, Andrews, and Davie. So that's the boundaries that impact Tarpon River specifically. The 2 points are, one, the transition zones, and I'm going to basically just dumb it down to my citizen level of not being an expert, but speaking to the transition zone, we're asking that it starts from the middle of the street for consistency purposes for the transition zone for the neighborhoods. This in particular is really important for us because on the west side of 4th Avenue within our neighborhood, that is much more residential. Once you cross 4th, it's residential in terms of condos, but there is also commercial mixed in. We're looking to make the area not jump from residential sizes to giant buildings so that it's not really consistent and to the character areas that, or to the character that the neighborhood truly has. Which brings me to my second key point that I want to hit up, which lines up with what Jim spoke about earlier regarding the character areas. We support what the staff has submitted in terms of the change for the area as it relates to Tarpon River, from a change from near downtown to urban neighborhood. That'll help us in keeping consistency with exactly what our neighborhood should look like and needs to look like, and helps us in supporting the really the lower building height so that it doesn't jump so high. Those are 2 points that we submitted that again are a part of the backup material. The other thing that I'll add in just in general that I know has been submitted by a few other neighborhoods, we are asking for the staff to explore a minimum unit size for downtown in general of 400 square feet. I don't know where that fits in the conversation tonight, but I know both Rio Vista and the Downtown Civic Association have submitted that already, and we support that as well. The 400 square feet is a minimum, is the efficiency standard, and we support that in addition to those 2 other neighborhoods. Thanks.
Thank you. Jim, am I right in saying that this downtown master plan, the 3 different cases do not speak to unit size?
That is correct, Jeff. If you recall from my presentation, I had a slide that had a list on the bottom of changes that we are asking for additional policy direction from the commission based on public comments. And as mentioned by Allison, that minimum unit size is something we are identifying for the commission and to get direction. And we agree, as a planning practice, that a minimum unit size should be established. We just need to get direction from the policymakers.
Okay, and as to Allison's first point, does the proposed downtown master plan amendments accommodate her first point?
So the transition zones as measured today are from the zoning district line or the boundary line of the RAC versus the adjacent zoning district. So I believe Allison said from the middle of the street. So it depends on where the zoning line lies. Mostly it lies in the middle of the street, but it varies a little bit. And that's why, that comment came up.
Okay. Let's see. Mary, unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So Allison, you wanted us to adopt the language, the right-of-way width shall not be counted as part of the transition zone, that the zone depth begin at the property line. That was the language you wanted us to amend this to say?
I want to look at our.
It's in a March. Yes, it's in a March dated June 17th, updated the original from March 20th.
Yes.
Okay.
But Jim, is there something Jim was just going to add?
I'm
on the phone, so I can't see.
That's okay. I was going to jump in and help you, and I was going to say yes.
I love help. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that was my question. So, and your request for notification, Jim, is that in there? The notification?
So the notification is also a policy direction we would have to get from the commission. Again, just kind of for a moment to distinguish that, we were directed to do something from the commission. These came up through the process, and we need the commission to be okay with it, basically. So that's that. Yes.
So what our process would be to recommend amending this to add that to it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Catherine, I have to log out of this computer. I'm logging back in on my other computer. This computer is dying. I have like a minute left.
Okay, Brad, go ahead. We'll get with you.
Okay.
All right. So do I have Coleman? Your hand is still up. Is that a mistake? All right.
Yes. I want to talk about the 400 square feet in a minute, but I want to go ahead and finish the public hearing.
Okay. Tricia, do we have any other members of the public wishing to speak on this item?
Yes, we have one more speaker. Her name is Janet Scraper, and she's already in the panelist.
Okay, terrific. Janet?
Hi, can you hear me?
Barely. Speak louder.
Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Okay, I'll try to speak loudly. Hi, I'm Janet Scraper. I'm on the board of Tarpon River, past president. And I do want to commend the staff on how closely, mirroring Allison's comments, they've worked with us. But just in general, for the last 13 years, the downtown master plan has been something that we've all used to try to set standards, and it's been very difficult for everyone because it wasn't codified. And while there could be improvements yet, and I don't think passing this precludes any further discussion and improvements to the master plan, I think that we just need to go ahead and pass this and get it codified so that we don't have to spend thousands of hours arguing against what's in the master plan, for what's in the master plan. And so I just want to say that we support all of these things, including, of course, the transition zones and the change in the character map areas. Although I'll have to just say, going forward, I wish the character area went a little farther north in the Tarpon River, 4th Avenue thing, but there are projects that have already been submitted, and that's why it isn't. So just sort of a heads up that it may come up in the future, that character area doesn't go quite far enough. But just to say that we would just like to get something on the books and get this settled, and we can always work on improving it later. But I think all the neighborhoods would benefit from us having the master plan mostly codified and put it into this endless roundabout that we've been going through for the last 13, 14 years.
Thank you, Janet. Anything else?
Oh, I do want to clarify that our position on the transition zone starts at the property line and not the middle of the street, because on very big streets like 4th Avenue, for example, it's almost 200 feet to the end of the street. So that would not provide much of a transition zone. So
you agree with Allison?
I agree with like Mary's interpretation of that. Yes.
Okay. Anything else, Janet?
No, that's it.
Thank you very much. Tricia, anyone else from the public wishing to speak on this item?
We don't have anyone else that signed up to speak, and I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, terrific. I am closing the public hearing and I am bringing it back to the board. Did Brad join us again? Brad, are you with us?
Yes.
Okay, great. Do we have anyone, Mary, you have your hand up.
I'm just wondering, how do you want to proceed on this? There were a number of, last time there were a number of things that we asked for clarification, but there are a number of things that we could just start moving for amendments. If that's what you want to do, we can discuss. I don't know, how are you planning to proceed, Catherine?
Mary, we have 3 different applications and we are going to vote on them separately. So are you able to identify the application for your issue?
Well, let's see.
I love your tabs, Mary. I love the tabs.
Thank you, Catherine. Can you hear me, Catherine?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I would just like to start with the one that Allison and Janet just spoke with and see what happens. I mean, I don't know what the best way to do this is. If you want to go through questions and then we'll come to amendments, or how you want to handle it.
Well, we're at the board discussion point, so I think it would be beneficial for all of us if you shared with us your specific concerns.
Well, I am going to be, I'm going to be supporting, by way of making an amendment, the issues that Jim put up as things that he's looking for policy direction on: the minimum unit size, I'm sorry, I have notes written all over, so it might take me a minute to read it. And the minimum residential parking requirement was another one that Jim had up on the screen. The policy that we just heard from Tarpon River.
Measuring.
But one question I do have before I start making amendments.
But wait, the last one you mentioned was that measuring from the center line of the right of way?
Yes, and I'll read it. I'm going to be reading it exactly as Tarpon River wrote it.
Okay, but what was the thing I cut you off from saying?
Well, so one of my questions, and I'm just, Dan started me thinking on this, but Jim, have you gone back out between October and now? Have you gone back out to the community for any further comment or any further input? I know we have letters from neighborhood associations in that time period and so forth. So could you just talk for a second about what kind of input you've gotten from the community since we met in October?
Sure. What I'll do is I'll pull back up that slide that has the public outreach. So as you can see, the October 16th, 2019 is when we came to you last. Since then, you could see there's been several meetings since with different associations and also with the Fort Lauderdale Forum, the chamber as well, where there's been additional outreach since we saw you last. So obviously you can see on the right where the location's been virtual since July of this year, but we have done additional outreach to gain input.
So the chamber discussion was just yesterday.
The chamber discussion was just yesterday, yes. And now the chamber also was part of the November 14th, 2019 presentation. If you just look up on the
I do, I see, yeah.
You see the DDA in the chamber, there was a joint one at that time. And let me go to this slide, this one. So you could see what those specific items were that you were trying to recall, Mary. And
I wrote them down, probably not as well as you phrased them, but when it's appropriate, Catherine, I'd just like to move each of those so we can see what the will of the board is.
I apologize for interrupting Mary, but Jim, was the chamber's position the same in 2019 as it was last week or whatever that was?
That is correct, Chair. I do want to mention a little bit about that. You know, currently, and I'll give you 2 examples, but currently if a non-residential development came in and if the I guess we can run through a hypothetical actually. If the downtown master plan didn't apply to a non-residential development, they would be subject to the zoning requirements in the code. What we've experienced is, and I'll give you 2 examples, the Del Mar Hotel and the Main, which is an office complex on Las Olas Boulevard. Both of those projects, when they went to go analyze the existing zoning requirements versus the downtown master plan, came to us voluntarily wanting to follow the downtown master plan. What to me that says is an indicator that what we're proposing is actually better for them, not worse, but it worked better for those 2 projects, which are 2 examples that are pretty recent of building a non-residential development. So I just want to kind of call that out for a minute. I don't disagree with what Dan is saying. I think economic analysis reports are always helpful as you move forward. It helps solidify and looks at the trends and so forth going on. However, that was not part of the directive that was given to us. However, as I mentioned, I think those are 2 examples that are pretty recent that did not impede or stop the development of those 2 projects. And actually the downtown master plan helped those situations. So I just want to kind of call that out for a minute.
Thank you. Mary, you have the floor.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't want to cut anybody off, but I'm just going to go ahead and move to amend where appropriate.
Okay, can you be more specific?
Rather than going through the whole document, Jim, adopt your proposed. Yes, I'm going to move that could you leave that thing up on the screen? That we recommend to the city commission that they amend this plan to include a minimum residential parking requirement. That wasn't one, but I'll just start with it.
And unit size?
And unit size. Oh yeah, I'll just recommend, okay, I thought maybe you wanted to do them one by one, but so I'll do those 2 together.
And measuring from the center line?
And measuring from the, oh, you want to do them all together? Okay, sure.
Well, I mean, we need to get a motion together.
Okay, measuring from the center line, as in the Tarpon River, which reads the right-of-way will not be counted as part of the transition zone, that the zone depth begin at the property line.
Are those the 3 amendments you'd like to make to the staff proposal?
Those are the 3 right now. I do have other comments, but I wanted to just go ahead and let's just get those done and then we can go on.
Okay, so that was, Mary, was that a motion for approval of items 6, 7, and 8 with those 3 amendments?
If we could do the motion separately, Mrs. Sherry, can we please do the motion separately?
Okay, well, I just don't know under which case plan Mary's requested amendment would fall.
I'm probably not doing this well then. I just wanted to get the individual amendments done, similar to what we did with the comp plan, because this is such a lengthy document.
Sure.
And then I have other things I wanted to discuss, but if we could just dispose of ones that we agree on and then move on to ones that we might not, that might get us to the end of this. I don't know.
All right, so Mary, I think I'm sort of changing my mind. I think it would be best if we did all of your comments.
Oh, okay. So on the, hold on, I have to get them because I'm not as well organized as you might wish. On the tower separation, can we discuss tower separation? You're recommending 60. It was, I read back in your comments, it is 100. It's been generally 100. It's going to 60 and then 30.
What's your question for Jim?
Well, I'd like Jim to explain just exactly how much we're reducing the tower requirement right now.
Chair, this is, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jim.
Okay. This is Jim. Just for clarification, we are not proposing anything different than what's in the downtown master plan. So the slide that you see before you is what's in the downtown master plan at a minimum 60-foot distance between towers. There's never been 100 identified in the downtown master plan. So I just want
Okay.
to.
I got that from a comment that came out of the Downtown Civic Association meeting. I'm trying to find those minutes.
Yeah, that was a public comment that was a recommended from, I think the Downtown Civic Association said there should be a minimum of 100, but there's no analysis behind that. You know, what we have before us is a downtown master plan that had a professional consultant come up with these recommendations based on analysis. So if we were to go back and change these numbers, we would have to basically go back and do a full analysis of the impact and where you get that from, basically.
So when would you have a tower separation of 30 feet, Jim?
You would have it on an individual parcel. So for instance, if I am developing a parcel and I am building a tower on that parcel, I need to maintain 30 feet from the tower to the property line. So if the adjacent parcel develops and puts a tower, they would do the same. Then there would be a 60-foot separation between the towers.
Is there any case in which there would be less than 60 feet?
Yes, there could be situations where there was an existing tower built prior to the downtown master plan, and then you're coming in at this time where maybe that tower is only at 15 feet. That is a unique situation, in my opinion, you know, but an applicant would have to demonstrate why 60 feet can't be maintained. So for instance, an existing tower has been there for a long time. You own the adjacent property, you're developing it, you put a tower on it. That tower adjacent to you is at 15 feet, for instance, or 10 feet, say for example, then I would have to, as a property owner, provide a 50-foot distance from my property line is very restrictive from a development rights perspective. I think that would be a justification that someone or an applicant could go in front of the commission with a site-specific standard request saying, this is the existing conditions, this is the situation, and we're asking for it to be 30 feet instead of 50 to meet the 60-foot distance between towers. Almost, that would be a similar, like a variance, if you will, kind of.
But they would have to go to the commission to request that.
Exactly.
Okay, so, all right. Hold on, Catherine. I'm sorry, I have so many things here. Can you explain your open space? You have a minimum of 10%. What would be standard in the rest of the city?
I'm sorry, what do you mean? What would be standard?
Well, all right, let me put this a different way. How did you come up with 10% on open space?
Okay, so 10%. And I'll probably ask Ella to kind of jump in and help me here as we kind of go through some of these specifics.
Yeah, and I do want to clear up what Jim just answered about the tower separation. The way the code language is written is that if you, exactly how Jim explained, if you have a separation and you have an adjacent lot, you're only responsible for the 30-foot portion. So you would not have to go to city commission if you have an existing site that you're redeveloping and the adjacent project is a little bit closer. If you look at the table 1 summary of the dimensional requirements.
Okay, good, because that's what I was thinking. And so I don't know how anybody else feels. I'll just wait till I hear other people, but 30 feet seems just like too little when you're talking about the tower heights that we're talking about. Okay, so if you, Ella, if you go down to the change that you're making for open space, what does that come out to? I mean, now you're saying 10% of the lot, and previously you had specific numbers. How does that change the outcome?
Well, no, that's actually, so a clarification there. Where you see new, there's actually no requirement today. There's no requirement in the city.
Okay. Except in the city center, yeah. Okay, so
Right.
how is it, what's the net, if all I'm trying to get is to the net impact of what you're doing here. You have a minimum of 10%. How would this differ from someplace else?
Well, again, remember the CC is like your urban core district. So you're talking about development patterns that are a little bit more built out. And so the recognition there exists for that kind of a context versus an urban neighborhood where you've got, you know, a little bit a different parameters to work with. And it's also something that didn't exist for non-residential development, where we're proposing the additional 10%. The other requirements that you saw on that slide included existing code language with the exception of those minimums. The minimums are something that staff added to that code provision.
Okay, I'm still, I guess my goal would be not to have a concrete jungle. So I'm just wondering if what you're doing is going to prevent that.
And I think, you know, Jim mentioned it earlier. We did hear a lot of feedback from different urban designers and landscape architects and the general community about, you know, how important it is to get meaningful open space and landscape space. And I think we do recognize that we didn't want to necessarily remove what we had in the code. So as far as that, and Jim, if you could just put up the slide again, so we're all looking at the same information, that as far as the numbers that are existing, you know, we didn't want to remove them from the code until we've had a chance to do additional analysis. But again, with this type of an effort and with the request to make these codifications, you know, in a fairly quick amount of time, we would just need to do a lot more analysis, possibly hire a consultant. So we are saying, and we do recognize that we'd like to, you know, revisit some of this as a future amendment. But at least for now, what we did do an analysis on, and we did actually work with some existing applications, is look at that 10% minimum where nothing exists today. So I think, you know, we have the same intent where we want to encourage a great sense of place and usable open space for our residents in the downtown and make it successful all across the board. But it wasn't part of this effort because of that additional analysis that we would need to pursue, other than that 10% addition.
And on the transition areas where you changed the boundaries of some of the areas, or Catherine, do you want me to wait till you get to 7 and 8?
No, go ahead, Mary.
I'm just wondering what notification you gave to property owners.
Yeah, so we had the code required notification was done, which was the newspaper notice has been included. But we also voluntarily went ahead, and obviously you saw the amount of meetings that we've had that have kind of led us to the point that we are at today, and a lot of outreach and a lot of publicly sort of accessible meetings. But we also posted signs around major intersections. Again, that was a voluntary thing that we just wanted to make sure property owners were aware, and those were posted, Jim, I believe about 2 weeks prior to this meeting, if you could chime in.
Yep, we posted at various locations throughout downtown, I believe about 11 signs at intersections and a couple more actually in the medians on Federal Highway. And it was done 15 days ahead.
It was done when? 10 days ago?
It was done 15 days prior
15, okay. All right, I'm sorry, I thought I heard you say 10. Okay. Okay, Catherine, I'm gonna just pass this on to someone else for now.
Okay, Mary, thank you. I do believe, I thought I saw another hand, but I don't see it now. Wait, Coleman.
Thanks, Catherine. I just wanted to talk about the 400 square foot requirement. I mean, I understand, I guess, where that comes from. And I know that recently in the city, there was a project in the core that I think probably likely fell below that. And I'm not necessarily saying that we shouldn't adopt that, but I think that one thing we have to keep in mind is, you know, we talk about affordable housing being a problem in the city, and every time we adopt regulation like that, we make that harder and harder to attain. And at some point, we're going to have to really get serious about that. And some of these requirements, especially this one, I think at some point just make it really hard to build affordable housing. And I'm not sure where we go from here if we adopt something like that.
So, Coleman, would it be possible to carve out language that applied specifically to low-income housing versus a blanket requirement over property falling within the downtown master plan and character areas.
It may be, and maybe it's a communication to the city that, that we support the 400 square feet, but with a caveat that, affordable housing needs to somehow be addressed in that. Because we're
Right.
just
And
pushing
Coleman-
affordable housing further and further out. Yeah.
Mary?
I know I'm breaking in because that was my tab I didn't have on. What does this plan do for affordable housing? If while you're answering him, you can answer that.
Okay, Mary, who's your question to? Jim?
To Jim.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes. What does the downtown master plan do for affordable housing, and how do we allay our concerns about a minimum? We could recognize and support a minimum unit size as it relates to affordable housing, but not necessarily the entire downtown. Did I get that right, Mary?
So I'll kind of break that into two aspects. The first is, as you may be aware, the city is looking at affordable housing issue and requirement that's citywide. It would apply citywide if it's adopted. So there are efforts going on with that topic in a manner that deals with growth and residential coming in the city, no matter where it is in the city. I wouldn't say no matter where it is, but anywhere where the growth is occurring, which is in the racks and along the corridors, which aligns with our flex policy. Also, if a property or an affordable housing developer wants to come in, they can build affordable housing pretty much in the city. So that's kind of a citywide policy direction that we're going. When it comes to minimum unit sizes, all of the zoning districts outside of the downtown have a minimum unit size for a residential unit. The minimum is 400 square feet. The reason why it's 400 square feet has been in our code for quite some time, but of recent trends, the micro unit has been talked about and built in certain cities across the country. The 450 square foot tends to be that sweet spot, if you will, for a micro unit or smaller unit. What ends up happening is you need to offset that with communal space, meaning the project needs to have space where a resident can get out of that 400 square foot unit and experience either an amenity deck or a communal space area where they can rent an office. Those trends, there's some feedback on it, like Ex La Solis, which I think they call them Society now. I think they changed the name. Their minimum unit size doesn't get smaller than 450 square feet roughly. So there's been some studies about the smaller the space, the more confined you make it, the more communal space or other areas you have to accommodate, which still adds to the construction cost of the project. So there's kind of a fine balance there. Yes, agreed, want to provide affordability and make these units affordable. At the same time, you want to make them livable. You want to make sure that they provide space that's adequate for a resident to live in. Not only that, I won't mention any specific project, but the Florida Building Code does have minimum requirements. So with the city not having a minimum square footage for downtown, we have to defer to minimum requirements, both in Florida Building Code and also in our code ordinances in Chapter 1 for habitable space. And what ends up happening is the minimum and the square foot minimum that results in is about 275 square feet or 280 when you apply that. So it's not far off to going from that number to 400 square feet, if you think about it. So obviously this is something we've heard from the community. It's something we've been, as planners, looking at the trends that are happening. And we also look at what's in our code already. So that's kind of just a quick overview.
Mary?
And I was just going to mention that several of the civic associations had written letters requesting this, and as well as Jim putting it up on his screen. So I just wanted to know that there's a plan for affordable housing, and you're saying that's going to come separately, but it'll be a citywide plan.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Coleman.
Okay, I have no other questions. Is there a motion? Is there further discussion? As to item number 6, T19013.
Catherine, I don't know where I am. Where am I? Catherine, can you hear me? It's Mary. Oh,
Yes.
you can see me. Am I on? I'm gonna, just for purposes of discussion, I'm gonna move this with the amendments that I previously proposed.
Okay, so we have a motion on item number 6, T19013, with Mary's request that there be a minimum unit size. Yes.
Yes.
A minimum residential parking requirement.
Yes.
That the measurement for the character area be from the center line of the right of way.
Correct.
And the tower separation is
60 feet.
60 feet. Is there a second? Board, do we have a second for Mary's motion?
John Barranco seconds that.
It's a motion to recommend approval, correct? With
Correct.
amendments? Okay.
Second by John. Any discussion on the motion? I do not see any hands. I will call the roll. John Barranco.
Yes.
Brad Cohen. Brad, are you with us? Brad?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm doing it from my phone. Yes.
Okay. Coleman Prewit.
Yes.
Bill Rotella.
Yes.
Jackie Scott.
Yes.
Jay Scheckman.
Yes.
Mary Fertig.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Michael Weymouth abstaining. Case number 7, PLN ULDR 2008-0002. Is there a motion? Mary, would you like to make the same motion?
Hold on. I'm pulling that out to see what notes I might have, Catherine.
This establishes downtown character areas, downtown core, near downtown urban neighborhood.
I mean, I'm happy to make the motion for discussion. Yes.
Okay. Would it include your previous 4 amendments?
Irrelevant.
Minimum units, minimum
Yes.
residential parking
Yes.
requirement, measuring from the center line and tower separation of 60 feet?
Can we put the screen up again on the character areas and what the requirements are? Jim, do you mind doing that?
I think it would be best to get the 2 side by side, the before and the after.
Yeah.
So Mary, I think that your request, your amendment about measuring from the center line for a character area would apply here.
Yes.
And your tower separation would also apply here.
Yes.
Chair, the transition zones criteria is actually under the transition zones item, which is the item number 8.
Okay.
So just save that, Catherine.
I'll save it.
I'm looking on 7. 7 has the charts, but. Oh, I see, Jim. Okay.
All right, so Mary, you're moving item number 7 for approval?
Yes, this is the character areas, and this is the map. And Jim, I'm moving it for approval, but I'm going to have a question if I get a second.
Just to clarify that the map is not this particular item.
Pardon me? Dwayne,
Yes,
what did you say?
I believe that the map would be the next item, number 8. Is that correct?
It's attached to number 7.
Character areas are number 7 and the transition map is number 8. A lot of the amendments, though, are all encompassed under item 6. So with the exception of the proposed change to the transition, perhaps those requests could be made under item number 6.
So to clarify, item number 7 is a textual change, whereas item number 8 amends the map.
Okay, so we did include Mary's 4 amendments in item number 6. So Mary, I guess you're just recommending number 7 straight up?
Yes, number 7's the one. Is that the one where Alice sent us a new thing? No.
Is there a second for Mary's motion to approve item number 7, PLN ULDR 2008-0002?
I'll second it.
Second by
Catherine, it's Coleman.
Yes, thank you, Coleman. Any discussion on that item? I am looking, Jackie?
I have a question on the map. On the proposed RACEMU to the east. I cannot read your map. I don't know what the boundaries are as far as how far east that goes. And does it go further east than it did previously?
Are you, this is Jim, are you talking about the zoning district boundaries or the character area boundaries? Because the zoning
I'm
district.
talking about it's very hard for me to read this, quite frankly.
Yeah,
on my
I agree.
laptop.
So
Jackie, so the answer is no. I mean, in terms of the boundaries of the regional activity center, which you see, the boundaries themselves are the same around the perimeter of the downtown.
Okay, so no boundaries have changed.
But
not around the downtown perimeter, no.
Ella, it looks like the RACEMU on
That's it.
the east side of the downtown core goes further east than it did today.
Yeah, so our apologies. I think what's a little bit misleading is the two maps show different things. RACMU is just referring to the underlying zoning. If you just look at the colors and pay attention to those and look at the legend, that's really all we're comparing. That compares apples to apples. So the downtown core, near downtown, and urban neighborhood character areas are changing. The overall downtown boundary is not changing, and none of the zoning designations are changing. And we apologize if that's a little bit confusing with the labels for the zoning districts.
Can you just tell me what the eastern boundary is, please, of that RACEMU to the east? What street is that? Because these maps become ridiculous when you can't read any streets or anything.
So it's not
actually a street.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's not necessarily a street. Actually, if you can see my cursor, that's 8th. And the actual boundary here is a mid-block. So
The southeast 8th, did you say?
Right. So it's not southeast is the street, but the actual boundary is within the mid-block area. It's not a street.
Okay.
And
thank you,
it
Jim.
follows the downtown land use boundary, the downtown regional activity center land use boundary.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
And Jim, that's existing, but proposed, is it the same street?
Those are exactly the same.
Okay, thank you.
But your near downtown area has increased, and the urban neighborhood area has decreased in that one section, correct?
So the near down, that is correct. The near downtown has increased. I'm sorry, the near downtown has decreased, and the urban neighborhood has increased along Federal Highway there.
But
the urban neighborhood also increased on the perimeters of Victoria Park, Sailboat Bend, and Tarpon River. So just want to make that clarification that overall there was a reduction in Flagler Village, but an addition along Victoria Park, Sailboat Bend, and Tarpon River.
And if I may, and I apologize.
And those associations have been in support of this, Ella?
That's correct.
If I may just correct the record, I misstated. Item 7 is the character area map, and item 8 is the transition area map. Is that correct, Ella?
That's exactly right. Thank you, Dewey.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so Mary is moving item number 7. Was there a second?
Yes, Catherine, I second that.
Coleman, thank you. Any other discussion on item number 7? Jay, your hand's up.
Yes, just that when you read back the motion, Catherine, about the right-of-way calculation from the transition zone, I think you said, from the character area. I think you meant to say the transition zone. I just wanted to correct that.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Any other comments or discussion? All right, so we're gonna take a vote on item number 7.
And Chair, so could I just get a clarification for purposes of capturing this right in the minutes? There's
Sure.
no conditions on this particular item, is that right?
As I understand it, Mary's 4 conditions were appropriately applied to item number 6,
Thank you for the clarification.
not
Thanks.
appropriately applied to item number 7. Would that be correct, Ella?
Right, because minimum unit size, parking requirements, the center of right of way and tower separation, that would not apply to character areas.
Perfect. Okay, so calling the vote on item number 7, starting with Brad Cohen,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Jackie,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Michael. Oh, sorry, Michael's abstained. John,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
and I vote yes. And could I just say, Bill, Rotella, cheers to you for joining a new board in times of COVID and not having a face-to-face meeting.
I appreciate that, Catherine. It would certainly be nice to see you all face to face. Thank you.
This must feel like Greek to you. Okay, moving on to number 8, PLN ULDR 2008-0001. Establishing transition zones, pardon me. Do we have a motion or discussion? Mary?
Would you like me to make a motion, Catherine?
That would be great.
I'm happy to make a motion.
Thank you, Mary.
At any time for discussion, but no one's discussing, but I'm still making the motion in hopes that someone will say something.
What's your motion on number 8?
Oh, motion to approve or adopt.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second, Catherine.
Thank you, Coleman. Any discussion on item number 8? Motion to approve. We have a motion and a second.
Can we put the appropriate slides up here? Jim, do you mind?
I'm sorry, say that again?
If you have slides that pertain to this, could you put it up?
Item number 8.
I'm not quite sure why it went off the screen, actually. Let me try again. There we go. And which slide, I'm sorry?
Number 8.
The transition areas.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for the transition areas, item number 8, PLN ULDR 2008-0001. Do we have any discussion on this item? Jay?
Yes, is the motioner including any amendment?
As I understand it, no. The amendment's related to item number 6.
But I'm happy to add that amendment on the transition one. Let me go back to her letter and read it. This is a lot of paper. I'm sorry. I hope the rest of you aren't. Okay. Here it says the right of way with. Okay.
Right of way is appropriate here, Mary.
Yeah, I'm making that one. I'm making the Allison Foster Civic Association, Tarpon River Civic Association amendment.
To measure the character area, we'll be measuring from the center line of the right of way.
So the right of way will not be counted as part of the transition zone, that the zone depth will begin at the property line.
Property line.
To be more precise, the zoning district boundary should be changed from the middle of the street between zoning districts and start at the property line in the transition zone. That's my motion, that whole statement from the Tarpon River Civic Association, which I will email you.
Okay. Do we have any other, Jay, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I don't see any other hands. I have a motion and a second on the item with one amendment. So I'm going to call the roll. Brad,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Jackie,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So item 8 passes as amended. Do we have anything for under communication to the city commission? I don't see any hands.
Hey, Catherine, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Just
Yes.
a quick thing for Jim. I know you mentioned we should expect an affordable housing program plan coming. Is that correct?
So as a separate effort, but a concurrent effort with this is we were directed by the city commission to analyze affordable housing and come up with a policy that looked at possibly, I would say inclusionary zoning, but not use that term really in the sense of the true sense of inclusionary, but rather how can we get affordable units out of our flex policy or flex unit policy. The downtown RAC does have requirements tied to the land use for affordable unit set aside of what was recently approved in 2016 of 5,000 additional units for the RAC. So there is a separate affordability requirement that's tied to the RAC. However, there is an effort that city staff is putting together a code language to deal with affordability citywide approach or citywide policy, and that still is being developed and will be presented to you because it'll be a code amendment and then on to the commission. But that's just kind of a big overview of what's coming.
All right, thanks, Jim.
Jay, your hand is still up, but is that a mistake?
Correct. That's a mistake.
Okay. Do we have anything to bring up under for the good of the city? I see nothing. Do we have a?
I have one, Catherine, if I
Yeah.
could. The one thing, and it's more of a question for staff and probably a suggestion for all of us and maybe the city commission is we've had so much happen as of late with our waterways, and we've always had issues, but it's really been brought to light recently. And I just think it would be a good idea in a lot of these approvals and a lot of the zoning modifications that we hyper focus or at least make it a very important issue when we're talking about water quality. And I know that's left to utilities, but I think it's such a broad thing and it really defines us amongst all the other cities in the world as a very unique place and having the water surround us. And that's why people come to Fort Lauderdale, is to enjoy the waterways. And I think we should hyper focus everything when it comes to zoning codes, utilities, laws to protect the water. And I think our job as a board, and we always ask the question, right? We defer to staff and staff always says, yep, we've got plenty of capacity. And I feel like we've approved a lot of projects and, we're vilified for doing that stuff. And we assume that everything else is working out, right? That we're keeping up. I just think as a board and as a commission, every time something's before us, we just have to ask those questions and be sure that we're doing the right thing and propping up the most important thing in this city, which is the water.
I have a question. John, are you talking about water quality? I mean, capacity really has nothing to do with water quality, right?
Well, when it floods a canal, when it floods our waterway, absolutely 100%. Can we do anything about that as a planning and zoning board? No. But there might be littoral areas, transitional areas, improvements to the banks in different developments where we could add oyster beds to the edges and make more natural estuaries, or make the estuaries that we do have more natural, to clean up the waterways and just be more proactive as a board. I don't have the answer. I just feel like as a board, we could do something to encourage that sort of behavior in development, as well as, just what we do as a city as far as public improvement. So I just wanted to put it out there and say my piece, because it's something that's just happened over and over and over again.
Jackie, do you have any other follow-up on that?
No, not really. I just wish more people would come to the ITF meeting and talk about their issues too. You know, we bring that stuff up all the time, but I understand. I agree with everything John's saying. I just, we talked about capacity. I mean, we always get letters of capacity but I think the spills and stuff are a big issue.
Is that
So,
right?
Catherine?
Yes, Mary. Mary?
Catherine? Can you hear me? I think what John says is really important. And I know we've asked for this and we're always told no, but I would like to see us have that presentation we've been asking for on infrastructure, but expand it to cover the waterway quality. And then maybe out of that, we could make some policy recommendations. I know Jackie asked months ago for us to hear from Public Works.
We asked to get a presentation.
And Jackie, I know you're muted, but I would just like to
no,
send that
no,
request.
you're right. We
again.
have to get a presentation from Raj and apparently that was not acceptable. Yeah, I don't want to get into that again.
Our communication to the city commission is that we would like that presentation. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes, but
that's
what
right.
we were told in the past is that we're not allowed to get that in the event that it might.
I remember.
me?
I remember.
Okay, you remember.
But we're making that request under
Yes,
communication.
but I think we should ask it again, and particularly in terms of we can add the new one, waterway quality.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, maybe you guys, our question should be, or the reason we want it is we want to understand the entire city process as it relates to capacity and stuff. We want to use it not on any particular project, but a pretty good understanding as to what they go through to make this decision and be able to ask questions. Does that sound like a more palatable presentation?
Sure. So do we have a request for this presentation under communication to the city commission? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? So that request is unanimously made under communication to the city commission. Do we have a motion?
I'm sorry, this is Sherry. I didn't catch who seconded that motion. I didn't catch that, who it was.
Second, who was the second?
Could we do it again?
Who made the motion? Did I make the motion or did Jackie make
You made the motion.
Oh, and so it must have been you or John who seconded it. I don't know.
Who's the second?
I'll second just in case.
Brad.
Sure.
And just to
Hi,
clarify,
Brad.
it's a presentation from Public Works Director, Raj?
Relating to capacity and quality.
Okay.
Well put, Catherine.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Wonderful to see everybody.
Mary.
I believe Jay had something to say.
We got a lot done. Good night.
Good night.
Is there any talk about when we're going to get together again or when the commission is live?
About
Anybody know? Is there any talk about when they're going to have live meetings again?
Well, what I've heard from the school board is the latest order will be expiring right at the end of the month. And then they'll have to see whether something new comes out or not. Or cities could petition. I don't know. Maybe Dwayne or Shari knows. I don't know. That's what I've heard from the school board people.
We're still level 1.
Correct. So there's two things that are going on. The governor's order allows us to meet virtually. If that expires, then the decision would have to be made as to how we meet without the availability of the digital or virtual platform. And then the other decision with regards to opening up, I haven't heard any discussion from the city commission or the county as to what they want to do with public meetings.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Yep.
Okay, everybody have fun.
Good
Nice to
night.
see you.
All right, bye.
How do I get out?